Boom. We are live, ladies and gentlemen. I think I figured YouTube out here again. Took me a little bit. Had some news peek up and out over the last 24 hours and some conjecture. Obviously, yesterday I was wrong, and it's one of the reasons why I always say with the triangles, you want to wait till you have a breakout confirmation. Both descending and ascending triangles, you can get really excited, like, yeah, it's going the way I wanted, but unless you buy the breakout properly, it can go either way. So some patterns are not as reliable as others. The ascending and descending wedges are some of those. So I'm going to just give it a second here. We're going to dive in. We're going to take a look at some COVID updates, as well as Bitcoin in the markets, because we have seen our first little bounce backs. Let's dive in. Boom, super easy. So we had our second death show up in the United States here. And again, the reason why this is important, again, isn't the strain of the virus itself. It's actually more, in my opinion, and again, not financial advice, just strictly opinions and conjectures here. We like ranting and trying to come up with understanding the unknowns here. When we saw the first death, we actually saw Costco said they were all sold out on their online stores. I had friends message me and say that going to the Costcos in their nearby areas were also undershelved. And I think what's important here to remember is that on a day-to-day basis, our just-in-time delivery system is really only capable of handling. So the story actually comes from a side angle. Here we are on the New York Times. And again, I'm not a big fan of mainstream media. All we're trying to do here is understand the emotional sentiments that are going to come from these events and the reactions that people take. Again, panic and fear are not what we want to be operating under. What we're trying to do here is always be as well informed and as ahead of the curve in every situation as possible, so that you can thrive and maybe even prosper from some of these movements and changes. There's a great quote, and I know it's not always that some people might not like this, but the idea of being greedy when others are fearful is important. The market moves that we saw, even with the downside of the S&P 500, presents opportunities to make more money, to add more assets. And what we're looking here for is trying to understand the long-term implications of a potential pandemic. Even if this is not a pandemic in the long term, it's going to give us a lot of information that's going to be valuable in the future, because this is something we might have to deal with. The reason why the scares come up about, the Zika or H1N1 is not unfounded. We've known for a very long time, scientifically speaking, that these are one of the black swans that fly around in the sky that can be very dangerous to us. So after the second death in the United States, what we're seeing is the researchers who have examined these genomes of the two coronavirus infections in Washington state say the similarities between the cases suggest that the virus may have been spreading in the state for weeks. This again is leaning into the idea that the community spread of this virus in the United States has already taken hold, and the lack of testing is the reason why the numbers in the USA are so low. Now, for those of you that have been doing the research and diving in, one of the important parts to remember here is that you can be asymptomatic, which essentially means you can be sick, get others sick, and not know it whatsoever. And that's a very, very important part of understanding this viral outbreak. A good majority of the people have mild symptoms. It's not the majority that we're worried about here. It is actually those few that hold key positions in these, in different markets, etc. Now, the overwhelmed medical system is the other one. Just everyone rushing to the hospital thinking they have coronavirus is not a great way to go. You should only be heading to the hospital if you're critically ill. Even being prepared and stocking up, I think in general, you should have a few days to a few weeks worth of food in your house at any given time. Always. It's just smart to do so. The supply chain has always been very weak, and being prepared is not an overreactionary sentiment. You're always going to eat that food anyways, so make sure you buy things that you like. Don't just buy for the end of the world. If you're going to die anyways, you might as well have some good food beside you when you're going out. Anyway, so I want to I didn't mean to jump into the market sentiment here, but what we're looking at is the potential of the breakout in these other countries moving much more rapidly than we're able to test for because of the asymptomatic transmission. So here we start to go and look at some of the changes in the markets. Again, the reason why we're paralleling the pandemic isn't so much that I'm worried for myself about getting sick from a virus that, its mortality rate or its case fatality rate for someone my age is very, very low. There is actually a second wave potential, which we can get into at the end of this, but I'm much more concerned about the markets because of the potential opportunities that are here for us when others are fearful. And what we start to see is that there's actually a mass amount of CEOs who are quitting their jobs working for some of these big companies. So if we take a look, you can see the 6 fastest day corrections in the S&P 500, and then some of the changes of the positions that are held. So this was actually not the best one where essentially you see CEOs of like Disney, all these big companies stepping down. I thought I had it open on this one, but apparently not. But again, you have the highest CEO departure since Challenger and Gray Christmas started tracking the data in 2002. So you see a fairly large increase of those who would more normally be managing a company going, hey, you know what? I'm just going to bow out and let someone else deal with this because I don't want my name attached to it. And that's a smart move. A lot of the times the people that are at the head of the ship get blamed for the problems, even if they had nothing to do with it. And that again is why I think this is important to understand, is that these are a confluence of events. It is not just a single movement or a tide change from the pandemic. It is actually a multiplicity of events that are taking place that kind of lead us into the idea that this black swan might be worse than it is. Now, if we go over here to CNN Business, not a huge fan of CNN, but they're going to give us all the data we need in one place right now. And here you can see the Australian, Shanghai, Hang Seng, which is Hong Kong, Mumbai, Sensex, Nikkei, again, Japan, and Taiwan's markets are all having a slight rebound, even with the Shanghai and China right now posting a 3% rebound. Now, this is always what I've been interested in, is actually the correlation between these markets and the sentiments as well. Now, a lot of people don't think that Bitcoin is correlated to the S&P 500, but it very much so is. And I actually wanted to show and highlight Crypto Bullet's work here. I really liked this one. There, I'll like it again. And here we see Bitcoin on the left side here, currently up at $8,456, and below it the S&P 500. Now, the relationship in the growth of both of these, I think, is fundamental, and it should not be ignored. For a long time, we're like, oh, it's not a corollary asset. It is. All the evidence says that it is. We have to remember that the assets in a dire situation are viewed much differently than the money you would need to procure the goods and services that are fundamental for survival. Water, food. The value of those things are much higher than an asset if you do not have that much to play with. And we know that when markets start to feel the pain, people are generally going to exit these positions that are more risky and go for maybe what they need for the next 6 to 8 months worth of food and water, etc. Right? Jobs could be lost. So again, understanding the importance of the corollary response here, both in Bitcoin and the S&P 500, I think at this point is going to become paramount, because my current market sentiments are that we might see a dip down in the COVID-19 cases over the coming months of April, May, June. As it gets hotter in the northern hemisphere, it's harder for the virus to survive in these types of locations. At least that's what we know about other previous coronaviruses. For those of you that are like, oh, look, the coronavirus is on Bill Gates' website, and look, you can buy it on Lysol. Yeah, there's actually a fucking enormous amount of coronaviruses, because corona itself just means that there's little spike proteins on the outside that look like a crown. It's pretty fucking simple. There are a lot of viruses that are completely fucking different that all have that spike protein on the outside that gets the name the coronavirus. So try not to lump them all together. They are very fucking different. And if you're like, oh, look, we've known about coronavirus for a long time, you just look fucking stupid. Don't even open your mouth and say anything at that point. We have to understand that the drastic differences between one virus and another, especially when we don't have herd immunity. We've never seen this one before. We don't know what the long-term complications are. We don't know what the second wave looks like. These are questions that have not yet been answered. And if we're dealing with a pandemic of something that is so fucking virulent that we can assume fairly safely, as you've seen mentioned from the CDC, that maybe 30 to 70% of the planet in the next year will get this virus, the market effects will be very fucking noticeable. And this is one of those times where being greedy when everyone else is fearful is important, because this gives us the potential opportunity to capitalize off this downtrend. And we went over the other day over the VIX. I'll go back to my charting here as an example for hedging a bet against the long term, or at least to the downtrend. That buying these is often like an insurance point, right? So here you see big spikes in the VIX. Back in before 2016, the VIX is a highly volatile market. You do not want to be holding on to these positions for very long, and what you want to do is just use them as a risk hedge, so that when other parts of your portfolio are going down, you have something that is going up. And now that we see this very clear relationship between Bitcoin and the S&P 500, we can look at the Bitcoin. And I normally never like charting in the really small time frames, because it's almost always a disaster. I always see people post cup and handles in the 15-minute chart, etc. And they're like, oh, it's a cup and handle. It's like, no, cup and handles take weeks. Here we went over the descending triangle, and we're only looking on the 15-minute chart to see this descending triangle, which means it's not a very strong indicator. There's not a whole lot of data to support this yet. So what you want to do anytime I see a descending or an ascending triangle, I wait for the breakout, right? So we hit the bottom of the triangle, we came back up, and as soon as we started to break out, especially above the moving averages and held here, this was a clear indicator that we were going to get a small run, and we did. We pulled off another 3% in Bitcoin. But again, when we look at the Shanghai index, oh look, a 3% increase in the Shanghai Composite Index. Well, what did the S&P 500 do? I wonder what the S&P 500 has been doing. Oh yeah, look at that. Very, very similar, right? Here we go. Measure this from top to bottom. Oh, 3.23% increase. Well, holy fucking shimmeldamels. That's crazy. There's a correlation here, and that correlation is likely coming from money printing. The Federal Reserve, whether upfront about it or not, has been printing money in mass for a very long time. I do not have the papers open right now, but you can basically go to the Fed balance sheet, and it is also a corollary to the S&P 500. Actually, more so, the S&P 500 is a corollary to the Fed's printing. We are in unfounded markets. There is no fundamentals behind any of this. It's very likely to say the only reason Bitcoin has gone to any of the highs it did is because of all the money printing that has been taking place. Now, again, what we want to understand here is that these can become prime opportunities. There is still room for a significant amount more downside here in the S&P 500 and in Bitcoin. Now, with the idea that we're likely going to see, let's say, a confluence of events where the COVID-19 virus starts to slow down in the months of April through June, the pickup of the virulent discussion around a potential pandemic might flare up again near August, where we see this thing take off in the Northern Hemisphere when winter really starts to set in. And again, that was my contention yesterday, aside from the fact that the reason we're looking at such a small time frame is because I was out dancing. I didn't take any positions. I had no safety hedges. I was just like, I'm going out to dance. I'm not thinking about a goddamn thing right now. And as we all should do, life is for enjoying. It's not just for trying to capitalize off every experience you can. There's a lot in life that you don't need, is way more valuable than money can ever contend to. And you just need to go and experience and appreciate what you have. So I had not taken a position. I had no hedges against my Bitcoin holdings. I was in no trade of any kind. So this drop here, which we could have capitalized on with a potential short, which we even pointed out in the private bear den, the goal to around 8,600, which we hit quite nicely. All I was trying to do here with this 15-minute descending triangle is, okay, well, are we going to see more downside? And yesterday we looked at the potential downside, which is only to 8,200. It's not a huge deal. And what's interesting too is often with these descending triangles, you'll see the same move of the top of the triangle. So that's about almost what you saw here on the outside too. Now that we've consolidated around 8,900, a quick bounce up to 9,000 would make sense. But into the months of May, April, June, etc., April, May, June, the little dozen that we had is going to become crucial, because this could be considered an extended B wave. Now, there's a lot of hype and momentum around the halving of Bitcoin. I don't want to get caught in that nomenclature, but the correlation, again, that we see in the S&P 500 and Bitcoin here is ominous, because if we see a market breakdown, we know that Bitcoin is not going to bode well. I do not believe Bitcoin will bode well in a stock market crash. So there's a potential downside for another 20% of Bitcoin, of the S&P 500. Will that translate to Bitcoin's downside? And I think when we, let's go back out to the daily here on Bitcoin, we'll look at the long-term trend line here. Hopefully this will kind of help clarify the ideas. Let's make sure. Okay, well, we're live. As good as it gets. Monday morning, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. I'm just going to start producing videos as frequently as possible. We see this potential trend line here, like this. Now we'll do it again on the logarithmic chart as well. So there's two trend lines that you could say that are running the running course here, but this would actually match with that potential downside that we see here of another 40% on Bitcoin, 20% in the S&P 500 to get to that long-term trend line. On the log chart, it is a little different, obviously. Let's reset this. I apologize. I'm still feeling sick, guys, so it's not always easy for me to be as clear as I would like. My mind is a little foggy, I'm not making up any excuses. I'm just letting you know this is not financial advice. I'm just giving you guys my opinion. We're going to do it on a much more frequent basis. That way we can update and be like, hey, yeah, yesterday was a mistake. When you're charting in the lower time frames, if I didn't say it, I've said it before, but if I didn't say it yesterday, don't buy a triangle on until it's broken out. It'll give you clear direction. It will. And from there, you're better off playing your bets. So even with the long-term trend line, that's around $8,000 on the log chart. There, obviously, I could go a bit further back here within the data, but I don't have them open right now, so I'm not going to worry about it. So the downside for Bitcoin, again, I don't think it really matters. From an investor standpoint, just keep $50 a week is a great way to go. Over the course of your life, you'll always be happy with that strategy. If you have more to invest, do that. I think a lot of people just dive in thinking, I'm going to get rich quickly overnight. It's like, you don't want to get rich quickly. That's actually generally one of the fastest ways to go broke quickly. So having a long-term consistent strategy, both for investing, trading, and building your life is extremely important. So will the Bitcoin halving bring us up a little higher? There's a lot of reason to believe that's the case, but under the weight of a potential pandemic, it's really hard to say. Again, when we see that corollary response between the S&P 500 as well as the other markets, it really begs the question, are we going to see a breakdown just based off the market sentiments and the fundamentals that, China's not delivering anything? But again, today, I think we're going to start seeing that at least interim and localized uptrend. Oh, wow, look at this. China online education, 13%. Yeah, that makes sense. Online everything, I think, is going to do well during a pandemic. Like if you are not already making money from the internet somehow, you should definitely look into it. Being able to trade, or at least invest, right? Investments are always a great way to go because it's a long-term strategy. It's not a day-to-day strategy necessarily. It's a week by week, month by month, consistent investment in the things that you're interested in type of strategy. Whereas, SEO, some of the other things we've gone over in the private bear den about how to make money by owning digital online real estate and digital online assets is extremely important. So we're keeping a close eye on COVID-19 and the market sentiments, but I do believe in the coming months we're going to see that confluence of events. We're like, hey, we'll get the okay. People are going back to work in China. Things are starting to recover. We're going it'll start to climb. And then I think we're going to see another big hit come near August. So being prepared for that, I think, is what we want to be interested in because it could equal a very large gain. And in these times, you want to make sure you have as much ammo in the keg, or like gunpowder in the keg, as possible, right? Be greedy when others are fearful, and I do not believe this fear is going to stop. I believe it is only going to increase, and I don't think you should be scared. I think life is this beautiful collage of experiences, and then even if I were to die tomorrow, like, this was fucking awesome. This is a great ride. So I'm going to be grateful for it. I'm going to be excited about the possibility to learn more. And if I get hit, let's get ready to fight. This is important. Now, again, this is going to potentially be with us for a few years. It's one of the reasons why I'm going to include it in the next continuous videos of charting. Again, I with Bitcoin, I didn't take a position on my short yet because yesterday all I was trying to do was figure out where we were. As soon as we broke outside of that little triangle that we were watching, it essentially yeah, well, again, first off, charting in small time frames is never like a great indicator. You're nowhere near as reliable for your patterns, etc. as well. So that's, I mean, that in itself is probably such a great lesson to share. And again, if, like I said, I've mentioned it in other videos, but if I hadn't in yesterday's video, both ascending and descending triangles, you want to wait for the breakout because it's not confirmed, right? Once you have a breakout, you can expect that we would see down to around 8,200. Now the breakup, same thing. We're going to see likely a retest, maybe a head and shoulders back down to around 8,600, and then a continuation upwards, which again, I think is going to align with the stock market and this story that the pandemic is subsiding and things are going away. So just lastly, before I jump in and take a look at some of your guys' questions, we'll go over some of the data that we see. 89,000 cases, currently 3,000 deaths and 45,000 recoveries. You want to look at the logarithmic case. We do have this kind of leveling out, and this is where I think the story is going to come from, that everything's getting the A-OK and the green light to go back to work. Was this logarithmic chart has really curved down and flattened out, which means that the virus, it's not currently increasing at a very high rate. But when we start to look outside of China, that's not the case. Right, South Korea is now sitting at 4,300, Italy at 16, Iran probably much higher in Iran, and even in the U.S. now that we know the viruses potentially have mutated, like we're already in a community spread, these numbers are likely going to go from 80 to hundreds, maybe even thousands. The fact that they've only tested a few hundred people into the United States is really mind-boggling to me. I know in Costa Rica we've already tested over 200 people landing from different countries that showed symptoms, and the airline is saying, hey, this guy's got a fever and a cough, and they would quarantine them here in Costa Rica. We're just a little kind of out of the middle of nowhere Latin American country. Our medical system is fantastic. Our infrastructure here is great. I'm proud to live here, even though I'm not a citizen. I really like this country. No military, 100% renewable resources. They got a great medical system here. I love my dentist. I go visit him like once a month because it's just so cheap, and he's such a nice fucking guy. I'm coming to Costa Rica and visit my dentist, ladies and gentlemen. If you guys need some dental work, I've got a dentist for you. Free plug for him. Yeah, anyways, I'm going to dive in and take a look at your guys' questions. Again, like I said the other day, I'm just going to be riffing and ranting as often as possible now that I'm back here in the jungle. So thank you guys all for basically boating with me and sharing the time. I really appreciate it. I know that YouTube has definitely smacked me down for not producing content on a daily basis like I used to, so I'm going to get back into it. And I know for you guys as well, the main goal of the channel here has always been to communicate value. So I want to thank all of you in the private bear den as well as in the public group. For those of you that are asking, I have closed the public group from entry for now. We were getting hit with a lot of spam bots, so it was ruining the channel. So for now, what I've done is I've hidden this, only private links, only members that are already there can invite other people. So there's that. We will open it back up once I feel that we're not getting hit by spam bots. We were just getting it so much. It really ruined part of the channel for a little bit. So it's private now, and we'll keep it that way until further notice. You can join us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter, all those other fun things as well. But more importantly, I think what I want to do here is extend my gratitude for all of the brilliant ideas you guys bring to the table. You're really the think tank that makes the Arcane Bear family so strong. I'm just one person. It's together, all of us, that really make this such an effective community, and I'm really grateful for that. I am not going to talk too much longer. I'm going to just take a look at a few of your guys' thoughts and questions because, as you can hear by my voice, I am still not feeling well. Okay, so let's take a look here. Mark Carter says, I've been stocking up for weeks, little by little. I've been doing the same thing. I keep going out, grab more rice, grab more beans, grab more oats, grab more oil, grab more sugar, more honey, the things that I would need to have like a fairly simple subsistence lifestyle for an extended period of time, if need be, because it's not that big of an investment. For the people that are downplaying it right now, I really don't fucking understand what the upside to being like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, it's just like other flus. For the amount of money that it costs to prepare for 6 months of fucking potential or even a month of quarantine, if you just didn't want to go out, you can, like for me, for you guys, you can operate your businesses at home. For those of you that can, you can just chill and continue to work. In fact, like we just saw in the Chinese online education, you might do even fucking better because everyone's going to be looking for online things to entertain themselves with. So Now, the reason why we're going to be producing videos on a very frequent and consistent occasion as well, it's difficult, and I know, we've YouTube's pushed us down in the rankings because of that, so I want to get that back. I love you guys. I love being able to rant and chat with you guys. You guys bring so many great questions to the table, and I love riffing and ranting about it as well. So, Leon Light says, I love your channel. Thank you. I appreciate that, Leon. JMC says, different strains like in my garden. Yeah, exactly. Well said. Mark Carter says, second wave could be dangerous to everybody. Yeah, this is a very good point for those of you that haven't been studying in these areas, and you don't need to. Whatever floats your boat. I like this kind of stuff. It's interesting and entertaining to me. In the Spanish flu, one of the big differences was actually the second wave affected the younger generation because of the cytokine storm that was created by the healthy and intact immune systems. For the first wave, you want a strong immune system. The second one, you might want to already have another cold so your immune system doesn't fucking kill you, because that's what happened in the Spanish flu of 1918. First wave came in, killed mostly older people. Second wave came in and killed mostly younger, healthy people. And the reason that was is their immune systems turned into fucking valley girls from 2008. Didn't know what the fuck to do, so just tried doing everything. And in that became not just ineffective, but your immune system becomes the one that kills you from that particular relationship of the immune system not knowing what to do and seeing this new virus again and kind of freaking out, like, oh my God, like, what should I do? And you end up dying because of your own strength. Very, very dangerous situation. So the second wave could be much worse for the younger generation. And that's the real worry here, is we don't know what the fuck is going to happen. That's why people are preparing, is because it is smarter to do so. It is much more intelligent to take the steps to prepare to and look like a fucking fool in the case that it isn't a pandemic, because the downside is you end up with 6 months worth of food, which is not all that much more expensive. So go from there. Tommy Tourette says the correlation of coefficient indicators helpful in observing that. Great. I don't know what that is, Tommy. If you could, you guys can always email me, Tio@ArcaneBear. If you guys ever want to send me information to look at, you can do it via my email from now on, tijo@arcanebear.com. The reason being is because I've closed the private Telegram, I've closed the Telegram channels into private now to keep out the bots. Ryan Goodling says, great to see you live, Tio. Always appreciate your thoughts and take on things that are happening. Thank you. I love doing this with you guys. I have a woman here staying with me right now, and I definitely don't want to burden her with all my shit talking. So I'm so glad I've got you guys to be able to sit down and shit talk with. It's like, I just get so into it. I'm like, oh, the virus is moving and the R naughts are 4 to 7. I'm like reading the New England Journal of Medicine. I get super excited about this stuff because I like learning, right? So I appreciate that. I love that you guys enjoy this with me as well. It helps kind of buffer those in my immediate life that don't want to hear me rant about viruses on a day basis. You guys are kind of like my sounding board for this. So I really appreciate it as well. I can't tell you how valuable that is in the long term. Probably saved my ass from, let's see. Tommy Tourette, I don't know. I'm not going to use the Tourette's part anymore because that's, whatever. Tommy says, BTC AXUS hits 0.6 retracement bouncing from levels confluent with the bottom of the one-day Ichimoku cloud. Yet we saw, a very sharp downturn in gold as well. Again, any safe haven asset is not safe in a pandemic because they are assets. People are going to want survival, not assets, and they're a very different time of life to be paying attention to. Liquid Lifestyle says, amen, Tio. Life is beautiful and the sun will still rise tomorrow. Enjoy all and take advantage of the time we have here. Great. I love that. I agree with that 100%. So I'm just going to go through and I'm actually going to give you guys as much time as I can today because, and look, you think I should do a live video? Smash likes if you think I should do another live video. I'll start to try to correlate a little bit more content and maybe make these even a little shorter. But for now, I'm just going to go live. We're just going to rant. And then again, email me your guys' thoughts. I'll start to go over and share more of what you guys are interested in now that I have more time to do so. Mark Carter says, I don't trust the China numbers. I agree. I think South Korea and Singapore are much more telling of what we're going through. Liquid Lifestyle again says, don't you think the leveling off in China's numbers come from the quarantine measures that they took? Yes, I also believe that they're just not reporting specific cases anymore because they need to at least give the appearance of getting back to work. Shinto Self-Improvement says, get some rest for those vocal cords. Yeah, I'm going to take advantage of it, though. This is like the perfect time to be like Louis Armstrong. Like, I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, see, I think my sick voice makes me sound like I could pull off a Louis Armstrong. No? Okay, let's take a look at a few more of these thoughts. JT says, T, are you getting this info from Uncle Cliff? No, I'm getting most of my info from the New England Journal of Medicine, the Lancet, as well as the JAMA Network, which is the Journal of American Medical Association. You can find this data on other places like worldometers.info/coronaviruses, where you can find out the statistics of all of these happenings as well as the case fatality rates. Worldometers here has been fantastic. Here, if you go to death rate, I don't know why I sounded so excited about that. Such a fucking asshole. Sometimes like, oh yeah, let's look how many people are going to die from this. That reminded me of Bill Hicks. See, I like this voice. I can't just let it rest. I'm only going to have this for a little bit where I can sound like Bill Hicks at the end of a comedy set. Anyways, where was the case fatality rate cases? There. Anyways, Worldometers here has a lot of great info. So I'm not getting this information from Cliff High. There's a lot of different places you can get very solid, what I consider solid data from. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, guys. I don't think there's like a big Illuminati, the powers that be. I have taken far too many psychedelics to think that there's like a cohesiveness in the negativity. Like there's definitely the devil. Yeah, I've done the math enough to know the dangers of second guessing that one, but it's not the way most people think. I think once you get into the hardcore physics of what some of these ancient scientific pieces of literature are trying to say, it's much more about the division of the system itself, which is maybe has the appearance of a type of personality and character the same way we can assume that the divine does, and it seems to leave its fingerprint everywhere. So I try to look at this data and not go into the conspiracy theories. It just is it's safer to do so, to understand what the downside is without trying to guess on these. There's just too many unknowns there. So that's a hard one. Okay, so let's take a look. Tommy says the correlation coefficient. Yeah, Tommy, please send me an email for that one so I can learn more, because otherwise, I could just type it in, but I'm not gonna do that right now. More soldiers died in the First World War from Spanish flu than from combat. Yep, very true. Nate W says $50 says you have coronavirus. That's funny. Nate, if you'd like to, what you can do is you can go and check what the common cold is versus the effects of the coronavirus. Sore throat and a lot of mucus is a rhinovirus. Very, very easy to tell the difference. Whereas the lower respiratory, high fever, there's no fever over here. So you definitely lost your $50 there, Mr. Nate. You can send that over via the super chat there, because I'm 100% sure you just lost. The data is really easy to tell the difference between these. Actually, most of the other viruses, the only one that's really hard to tell the difference of is the flu, which does present in a virus and a fever and a dry cough, whereas rhinoviruses present as upper respiratory, throat, sinus, larynx with a lot. Obviously, my voice is my larynx. For those of you that don't know, so maybe not obvious. I don't know. You want. Not that I need it. We could give it away if you'd like. Send it over. We'll give it away to someone else that needs it to help prepare for these times. To help buy themselves extra food or water. I, on the other hand, don't need it. I got 10,000 liters of water storage out there. Got hundreds of fruit trees growing out on the property. So we'll give it to someone else. Jerry says, keep it up. Love the rants. Thank you, Jerry. It feels so good to be back. It's fantastic, even with this voice. Tommy Tourette says, the day after I pointed out the confluence on Twitter, gold tanked, causing the pop of Bitcoin gold that I expected. Yeah, there's definitely a correlation between these markets now. It is very, very noticeable. Nick Starr says, just finished my shopping. See, guys, I think that's a smarter way to go. It just is easier to manage in the long term. So take that, and I think it's a better way to go than is to not prepare and think, oh, it's just like the same old viruses. Like, well, what the fuck's the problem with having extra food and water in your goddamn pantry? Like, let's be fucking real, people. That should be what, like, you, if you can, you should all do that always anyways. I remember when I was younger, we lived in this like $10 million home with my girlfriend. We had a fridge and a freezer that probably had 3 months of food in there all the time anyways. Like, that's just was normal for them. So I tell you, it's not like, you're not like a doomsday prepper if you do that. A lot of people do that by nature anyways, because it's just fucking easier. You don't have to drive to the grocery store every goddamn day. I've actually got a second fridge I'm going to bring up now so that I don't have to shop on such a consistent basis, because there's no reason for me to leave every day. But if I have to shop every day to get the things I need for the groceries, well, then there is. And man, I don't even want to. This place is motherfucking beautiful. So, yeah, anyways, apparently I'm on rant mode right now. Liquid Lifestyles is really nice to have you back doing videos. Thank you. I'm loving this as well. What has happened to the logical thinking in the world? Yeah, I know it's gone out the window. It's just such an easy one. 50 tons of vitamin C to Wuhan. Interesting. Shinto self-empowerment is safer, not to mention to get more subscribers. Yeah, I understand. I'm not really, I guess, into it just to get more subscribers. I want to provide you guys what I feel is valuable. Maybe I'm fucking wrong. Maybe I'm just providing you useless data, but who knows? Right? I think you guys are smart enough to be able to discern whether or not what's happening. So I'm just trying to provide the things that I find interesting and the things that kind of excite me, and to learn more about this stuff too. So whether we get more subscribers from that or not, I think is unimportant. A lot of people don't recognize value. So I'm not going to take that as a negative corollary. Tommy says, the reason I bring up the corollary coefficient again was not to have you check it out, but you should. It was to explain that you missed the context above the message. Oh, okay, cool. Well, there's a lot of things that are corollary here. You don't even need a coefficient. I can tell you when the markets fucking slump. Acid act of life. So we can go from that too. I mean, it's pretty much simpler to explain than having to go through some type of coefficient, right? So here the correlation is survival is more fucking important than money. Who would have thought? Not to sound rude there, but that's the truth. That's why I think, again, Tommy, I think if there's something that you would like me to see specifically, just email it to me so I can try to understand what you're saying. Whereas in like the midst of my rant, I'm not going to be able to necessarily do it too. So if there's something you want me to take a look at specifically, email me. Happy to look at it on the next show. I think you guys bring, like I said, you guys bring a lot of value to the table. But in terms of like simplifying things, well, what's the corollary response here? Well, again, survival is significantly more important than an asset. When you die, you don't get to bring none of this shit with you. So if you can do something to help make your survival actually happen, then that's going to be more valuable than the assets itself. Crazy Kangaroo says, my neighbors grow vegetables. I grow yabbies, freshwater crayfish in preparation for global financial crisis coming, but it's looking like it was a wise idea. Yeah, I've always thought this was important. The supply chain is very, very delicate. Being prepared for a potential break in the supply chain is important. Tommy says, I also believe that people should watch Bitcoin and gold as well as Bitcoin and USD. It helped me be bullish at 3K and be very skeptical at the top of 2019. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, Tommy, email us that over so I can have a clear understanding of what you're trying to get me to look at here. Daryl says, half thinking of brewing some elderberry. Yeah, this is one of the times you're going to want the immune system strong. And the second one, we might be looking at a cytokine storm, which is, again, something very, very different to try to deal with. You want a weakened immune system, but that's not where we're at right now. Usually that's the second wave of flu viruses. So we're close to the end here, guys. Remember to smash that like button. Leave us a comment, thoughts. I love doing these videos with you guys. I'm so happy to be back. Shinto Self-Empowerment says, you're doing it very well. The multiverse will decide, and I feel it will. Thank you for the kind comments, sentiments. You guys are always great. Buy when others are hungry. Yeah, that's a good sentiment too. Tommy says, I'll tag you. Great, thank you. So is this pump just a joke, or will it gain strength? Again, I think what we want to look for here is the potential of the next 2 to 3 months being up. And as soon as we see the heavy season hit back in, we might see a re-emergence of the outbreak of COVID-19. And that's when we'll really start to see the global pandemic show its face. So I'm expecting a bit of a slow, dull time. Things will probably recover a little bit. Look, people are going back to work, but I don't believe that's going to last. So again, keeping a close eye here is just being prepared for what might be stealing from it. Can't imagine how bad it will get if real shit hits the fan. You know, me and my gardener have actually talked about this, that what would happen if everything turned off. He doesn't speak a lick of English either. He's like, yeah, everyone would just leave the city and they would turn into ants. And just like ants, they would eat the leaves off of everything that you have. And I agree with that sentiment. People would turn into ants and they would just flood out into the surrounding environment and eat whatever they could get their hands on. Anyways, we will leave it at that. This is Tea with the Arcane Bear. Thank you guys so much. I've had a great day, having a great day here with you. And even though my voice sounds like Louis Armstrong and it hurts to talk, I'm happy to be able to do so with you all. Signing off for the rest of the day. Actually, maybe not. Maybe I'll do a live video tonight just for fun. We'll see what happens. But either way, we'll see you guys on the other side. We're going to throw you a little outro because you guys all seem to like this. So let's decentralize everything and empower everyone the same way the universe does. Give opportunity to all and see what they do with it. It's up to you.